It isn't every day we get to do something like this. Interview a millie winner, not just a millie winner, but a Stokastic sub, rocking the Stokastic avatar. Now, look, all of that is kind of secondary to the fact that Rick here just took down a millie with a lineup that when you win the millie, you don't win the millie with a traditional lineup. You got to do something a little bit different. And I can't wait to pick his brain. We're super excited for him. Rick, thanks for jumping on with us to kind of dissect the process. Tell us how you did it, and tell us how everything kind of is right now, a couple days now that all the dust is settled since you pulled in a solid 7-figure win on DraftKings.
Yeah, happy to go through it all. So to take you through the process, every week is from Monday through Saturday is pretty standard, just listening to podcasts, just getting a general sense of the field and how people are playing it. And then, Saturday night, Sunday morning, I'll dive into the boom bust tool. That's my main starting point. And so I look at a lot of the leverage, optimal plays, who's getting a lot of ownership, and then make notes as I go down the line of who's a guy I want to go over, who's a guy I want to go under on, who do I want to meet the field with. And so with those notes in mind, I go to the sim tool, and then I just use the sim tool just on basic settings, nothing changed, see what I get from there, favorite like the top 150 from there, see what a traditional unencumbered simulation gives me, and then tweak from there. So big example for what I did for this one was James Cook. Basically, no one was getting to James Cook. After doing some research on him, he had a lot of volume at the start of the year. He got dinged up, didn't really get any carries the following game. So figured he was healthy now. He was in a good spot. Had really good leverage on Breece Hall, who was getting the lion's share of ownership. And he was at a cheaper price. So bumped him up a lot as far as both projection and at the initial spot where you update the ownership settings too. And then just did a little bit of tweaks here and there on the projections. I'm glad it worked out really well. It was crazy sweat at the end. So I had 50% of Tyreek Hill on Sunday. And so once the morning games ended, I was like, all right, well, better luck next week. And then took the dogs for a walk, made some dinner, turned on the TV again, and I see James Cook scoring a touchdown, and look at my lineups. I'm at like 20th place. I'm like, okay, things are going good. I got the most minutes left out of everyone ahead of me. And then there was a muffed punt by the Seahawks. It was like a worthless muff punt. They were up by like 30 points or something like that. And Seahawks dropped the ball. Bills picked that up, put me to 10th place. And then Lad McConkey gets a second touchdown. That puts me in first. And next thing I know, I see Sean Payton going fake field goal, doing some ridiculous stuff. He throws it to Sutton on the 10-yard line. Tutton's trying to run it in. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm screwed now. Sutton's going to score this touchdown. And in a matter of seconds, he fumbles the ball and loses that point. And then I just have to hold on for the rest of these games, survive through the crazy Noah Brown touchdown.
Was there any DeAndre Swift behind you? Because I know Roschon Johnson scored that touchdown. So everything – like the run out was kind of perfect there then for you.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that Swift is going to score here.
It was they're at the 1 yard line, and they bring in Roschon for 2 straight plays. I'm like, just please score it, Roschon.
Yeah, and he did.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, right? Because you said you had 50% Hill, and some people may know you as Bunt Cake on Twitter. Others may know you as Rick12324 on DraftKings. So you have 50% Hill. I was reading through, as it came in, because you had tagged me, Ben and myself in that tweet. So usually I would mute something like that immediately. Not because I don't love seeing that. What I mean is I mute it because you get a million different comments rolling in. But I was like, I'm probably going to talk to him. let me see what some of the questions are and some of the comments are. And there were actually a lot of great questions, some interesting ones. Some people obviously bitter because you won $1 million and they didn't, but that's the way it goes. You'd rather be on your side. But when you see that, first of all, I believe you said this, you go and individually favorite your lineups. Am I right? After you run a kind of factory settings, unadulterated sims, you see what you're getting, then you work backwards from there. Once you make those adjustments, you actually go in and favorite those lineups manually. Am I right?
Yeah, and so I just try to follow the basic DFS principles and look at what the sims are giving me and guys. And so I'm guessing I don't even remember picking the winning lineup, and I was like, yeah, I like Josh Jacobs a lot more than Chuba, but for the sake of correlation, I'll pick Chuba in this lineup. And next thing I know, it worked out.
So that's what I was going to ask you. When you look at last week, the chalk was what? Javonte Williams, Tyreek Hill. Who was Breece Hall. Yep. So do you remember going through the process and selecting this lineup and going, all right, it's got Bijan, Cook, and Chuba. It's got Chase, McConkey, and Tillman. By the way, McConkey was a great play, especially with Quentin Johnson out last week. Do you remember seeing that lineup and being like, all right, I have none of the highest projected, chalkiest guys in this lineup?
I mean, that's kind of what I go for when it's a million maker type of lineup. When I don't want to play those type of guys. I mean, Otten was a standout among tight ends in the position that just kind of stinks overall. Take it where I'm getting somewhat guaranteed usage and have the chance to have that guy go off.
It's funny too because I saw plenty of comments being like, I guess correlation doesn't matter, or you have to get really weird. We've seen some weird lineups. You've mentioned you watch a lot of the Stokastic shows. We saw the one where I swear the guy misclicked Jordan Love over Baker Mayfield because he had, what was it, Sean Tucker, Chris Godwin, Kate Otten. It was like a 3-man plus Tampa D without the quarterback. So we've seen some wild lineups. I looked at yours, though, and I go, all right, you have a Bo Nix, naked Bo Nix lineup, but he's, what, $5,300 with mobility. And then you had Bijan and K-Dot, and so you've got the secondary stack there. And then, of course, you had Chuba Hubbard on the other side of that Broncos game. There was a lot of correlation, as a matter of fact, in this lineup. It's just people see a quarterback without a stacked pass catcher and go, what's this guy doing?
Yeah, it was definitely a win for the pro DFS players that know what they're doing, and it's nice to prove that the principles that we rely on and the correlation, everything that we're taught, it finally paid off. Not having some random person.
How long have you been playing DFS, right?
So about 7 years. I've sucked for probably 5 of them, just putting in the top highest projected guys, not knowing about correlation and ownership, and then started listening to you guys, and it was a Neil Orfield recommendation 2 years ago on MVS that took down 40K, and then I've just been building the bankroll ever since.
And I guess what was the epiphany there when you, after 5 years, was kind of like, oh, wait a second, just playing the highest projected guys, the highest owned guys, this may look good on paper as far as a raw projection, but I'm not winning anything. What got you there? Was it that MVS spot where you're just like, okay, if I'm going to win in a super competitive type of game like DFS, I just have to be different?
I think it was studying the winning lineups and seeing all these stacks come through on the winning lineup. So there has to be some sort of credence to putting guys from the same team or guys that they're playing against each other into a lineup.
Are there any things that you're doing differently this year with NFL in the sense of how now you're seeing that the run back hasn't been as necessary in a lot of these winning lineups? Do you find yourself sticking to kind of the traditional stacking principles or maybe evolving in certain spots? Because that lineup you played is definitely a lineup that a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable playing.
Yeah, I've been trying to go off the board a little bit. I've been trying to target triple stacks, some even quadruple stacks, and then also naked quarterbacks when it's a running quarterback. So depending on the QB, it's gonna impact whatever I end up playing. Like if you have Stroud, you want to have him with, or Goff, you want to have him with 3 of his guys. Whereas if you have Lamar, like maybe you could get away with going naked there.
So just to kind of revisit the process, because I know a lot of people watching this are curious, like, all right, Rick just took down $1 million using, as you said, primarily the boom bust tool and the Sims. Are you looking at the boom bust tool first, gathering some thoughts, some ideas, just the overall, like the overview of the slate and where guys could pop, where their leverage is? Then, like you said, running the Sims just untouched. And then going from there, when you say getting it to the way you want, what does that mean?
So it all starts at the beginning with the boom bust, where some guys will jump off the page looking at the boom bust. And so just writing down those names and like telling myself, James Cook is getting 1% ownership here. Let me make it at least get 10% here. Tyreek should be going off this week. Let me, go over the field on that. And then trust the Sims to give me a relatively close allocation of what I want.
What would you say? And we could always pull it up in the post contest sim some other time. I may actually do that when we do one of these shows later on. What would you say when you have 150? So you have a portfolio of 150 lineups in the Millie Maker, like this Bo Nix lineup, for example. I love it because he's cheap and he basically got you to a lot of it. It got you to Bijan, right? It got you to James Cook. It got you to Jamar Chase. It got you to a lot of, even Chuba was pretty expensive. A lot of relatively expensive guys. And of course that Cade Otton punt helped as well. Just a massive game from him, justifiably chalk. When you look at the rest of your lineups, you said you did have 50% Hill. So how much of guys like Breece Hall did you end up on last week? How much of Javonte did you end up on?
I think Javonte was my biggest fade. I think I came in at like 10%, I want to say. And then I think it was at the field with Breece Hall, way over the weight on Hill, way overweight on Cook. Those were the big stands I took from what I remember.
The reason I asked too is because, you're going to get people to watch this and they go, oh, well, I just need to fully fade the chalk every week. And I don't think that's what you're suggesting at all. At 150 lineups, some of those are going to end up being built where you just don't have the chalk.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, because you see that there's a very big difference between like coming in on the field, or even like you said, you took a stand on Tyreek Hill as chalk and still got over the field on him. It just so happened to be your stand on James Cook was a lot more profitable in a spot like this. Hey, anything else? Just obviously no one's asking you to give the entirety of the process away. We're appreciative, and I'm sure anybody else, for you to jump on and give us anything here coming off a Millie. It's kind of obligatory, right? You win a Millie, you got to come on and say something. But
yeah.
Go ahead.
It was just this little segment. I'm hopefully giving something back to the community. Been loving DFS. It's a lonely road sometimes. So if I could sprinkle in my 2 cents, I'd say, try and find ways to be unique when you can. But the projections are good for a reason, and people are shocked for a reason.
I know. Turn your chair to the side a little bit for me so we can see that jersey behind you.
Oh, yeah.
So I believe that's a Devontae Adams jersey, right?
The good version of Devontae Adams, yeah.
Right, because you're from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You got to get somebody's jersey. You got to get somebody.
Bo Nix is gonna be Bo Nix is gonna be right next door to him.
Got it. I was wondering though. I mean, should it not be James Cook being like? Was James Cook not the needle mover in that?
Yeah, you're probably right there. I might have to do him as well.
Just stagger them. Have the Adams up there, have the Bo Nix, and have the James Cook down next to it, man.
Yep. Not a bad call.
It'll look good. Anyway, Rick, really appreciate you, man. If you guys, for any other insight or just to follow him, hit him up over on Twitter. Where can they find you? I know you're not doing like a ton of content or anything like that, but you're over at R Bunt Cake on Twitter, right?
Yep. Just hit me up there. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have or just collaborate. So, yeah, appreciate it.
Really appreciate you taking the time, man. Congrats again. And that ring will be at your front door in no time.
Can't wait to see it.
All right.
Thanks,
anyway,
Dave.
Shout out to Rick one more time for $1 million win. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. It might be you next. Who knows? Either way, we'll see you back here for the next one. Bye-bye.